Hello, the Canada Files viewers. This is Aidan Jonah, editor-in-chief of the Canada Files. I am now here speaking to Senator Yuen Pau Woo. Before his time began in the Senate in 2016, he was president of the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada. Senator Woo, thank you for speaking again to the Canada Files.
My pleasure.
So, there's an organization that has just been launched. It is called Canadians United Against Modern Exclusion. What is the purpose of CUAME and how does it intend to operate in the Canadian political landscape?
CUAME was set up to combat prejudice, stigmatization, discrimination on the basis of false or exaggerated claims of foreign interference and national security overreach. We intend to document cases of foreign interference hysteria, if you will, as well as national security overreach by producing case studies of these instances of overreach. We hope to educate the public on the dangers of modern exclusion, and we hope to contribute to public policy, good public policy, on the real issue of foreign interference and the importance of national security for our country.
Now, as you already explained the concept of modern exclusion in a previous interview with the Canada Files, can you give a briefer explanation of the concept here?
Well, very briefly, exclusion 102 years ago, in the form of the Chinese Exclusion Act, was the complete prohibition and stigmatization of Chinese people. They were not allowed in the country, and all Chinese people who were already in the country had to register. Modern exclusion seeks to distinguish, if you will, between good Chinese and bad Chinese, or good Canadians and bad Canadians, on the basis of their views, on the basis of where they come from, on the basis of who they associate with. So it's a kind of litmus testing of Canadians' loyalty and their fitness for being Canadian citizens based on what I consider to be unfair and unjust criteria.
Can you speak to your personal experiences since joining the Senate in 2016 with modern exclusion?
Well, I see it in the conversations I have with senior officials, with ministers, with my colleagues both in the House and the Senate. I see it in the legislation that we have dealt with and passed recently, most notably Bill C-70, a bill to counter foreign interference. But I see it personally as well. I'll give you one example, which is a debate we had in the Senate on a motion that had come from the House calling on Parliament of Canada to declare that the situation in Xinjiang with the Chinese government's treatment of Uyghurs should be called a genocide. Now, I invite readers to read my speech in detail. I make it very clear that there is no version of what is going on in Xinjiang that Canadians can be comfortable with. And I talk about how we need to speak to the Chinese, speak to Chinese officials about how we made gross errors in our treatment of First Nations, and we don't want them to make the same errors. This bill came to a vote in the Senate. It was defeated. I should say this motion was defeated. And there were more than 30 senators who voted with me against the motion. But I am the only one. I am the only one who has been singled out as a foreign agent, as a spokesperson for the Communist Party, and on and on and on it goes. Uh, could it be because I happen to be ethnic Chinese? What do you think?
Well, we've certainly seen a very extreme response, for example, to the your 2021 actions around the motion on the question of a Uyghur genocide and such. So, yes, we can certainly see that. Now, can you speak to the series of events, in your view, which made CUAME Board of Directors members and regular volunteers feel that an organization with a focus such as CUAME was necessary?
Well, we can go back any number of years, but I would say 2019, 2020 was probably the beginning of the crescendo of foreign interference um, chatter, leading, I think, to a kind of hysteria, aided and abetted by irresponsible journalists who were publishing news articles based on leaked documents that could not be corroborated. Our Many of our spineless politicians on all sides, all parties, wanted to jump on the national security bandwagon and took many of these reports at face value, or at the very least, did not question them sufficiently. It led to the haters, ideologues, even well-meaning Canadians casting suspicion on other Canadians simply because of where they come from, the views they hold, and the associations that they have. We have many examples of this kind of stigmatization. As you know, there was a big public discussion around foreign interference. There were five reports produced, all of them more or less saying the same thing and not saying very much at all. But what was really damaging is the innuendo and the public chatter around how we should be worried about, anxious about, suspicious of, particularly Canadians who have ties to China or who are believed to have ties to China, and cast them as either foreign agents or proxies of foreign agents. So this has been building, this problem has been building for at least 5 years. And when I spoke to my fellow board members, they were very enthusiastic in supporting the creation of CUAME. And I must say also that the broader community, particularly the Chinese community, has been extremely supportive of this venture.
Now, the CUAME Board of Directors is a rather diverse collection of people from the political and business world, for example. So, can you provide maybe some insights on the motivations for other Board of Directors members to, come out publicly, put their face on this, and risk negative attention?
Well, I'm glad you've recognized that there is risk involved. I'm a senator. I'm somewhat protected. Some of my colleagues don't have those parliamentary protections, but they feel strongly enough about the issue that they want to be part of this organization. Let me first of all point out that while all four of us on the board are ethnic Chinese, not one of us is from mainland China. Myself, I am 3 or 4 generations removed from the mainland. On my mother's side, at least 4 generations. My father's side, 3 generations. Mr. Ho is from Taiwan originally. Mr. Tam is from Guyana originally. Former Senator O was born in Singapore, and I was born in Malaysia. But we all feel that there's this gross injustice and un-Canadian behavior about the way in which Chinese people, but also just people who have ties to China, are being vilified and stigmatized simply because of their ties. And so it wasn't, as I say, it wasn't difficult to persuade them to come on board. And they have in turn brought many of their friends and supporters and associates to support CUAME.
Now, CUAME, is this going to be a volunteer-driven organization? And if so, how does CUAME hope to ensure members will be empowered to make their voice heard?
We are a volunteer organization. All of us on the board are certainly not paid, and there's no intention whatsoever for us to be paid. Many of the folks who are helping out on, administration and building websites and all that are essentially doing it on a volunteer basis. Of course, we will need to raise some funds in order to procure professional services, to commission research, to host outreach events. So there is some fundraising going on, but much of the impetus that I'm seeing around CUAME from the broader community is all coming on a volunteer basis. Again, precisely because the community is angry about the way in which um, our leaders have allowed this kind of casual and dangerous stigmatization and prejudice to percolate and to thrive in society. We have produced some case studies on our website. I invite your viewers to read those case studies. They are a telling example of the way, just some of the ways in which we see modern exclusion in Canada today.
Now, certainly in terms of community anger, I mean, when I looked at the foreign interference inquiry transcripts, I noticed, and certainly I won't expect you to comment on this, the comments of the NDP MP Jenny Kwan and the former Conservative MP out in British Columbia. Now, both of them made comments around how, when they took certain stances around the actions of China, that then the views of their constituents and actions changed, and they seemed to feel that this was proof itself of interference. And of course, as you can imagine, I don't expect a community to take well to people saying that their dissent about the political decisions must automatically, without clear evidence, be proof of their servitude to a foreign government. But regardless, let us shift now. So there were responses of different parts of Canadian society to Kwame's foundings. Now, how does this feel at this current moment?
Well, the support is gratifying, but there also are voices who are against what we're doing, particularly on social media. Some of the very groups that are perpetrating modern exclusion are doubling down in their criticism of what we're doing. And to me, they're just providing me with more evidence of modern exclusion. Essentially, what they're saying is that these individuals who have set up CUAME must be agents or proxies of the Chinese state because they are fighting national security overreach. Now, who would support national security overreach? Who would support false or exaggerated claims of foreign interference? And yet, we are called agents of a foreign state precisely because we're trying to provide some balance and some perspective and to get public support for the necessary national security measures that should be taken rather than the kind of exaggerated focus that we've seen in recent years.
We have most certainly, I think, seen over the last few years that the people that most decisively speak about free speech when it comes to the voices of the Chinese Canadian community, for example, are suddenly way more focused on a vision of national security than the vision of what makes their particular political ideology supposedly so strong. It's been quite remarkable to watch, and it's something that has seemed to continue in these
Let me
last
be
weeks.
clear about one thing.
Yes.
I respect the right of my critics to take harsh positions on China and to support whatever causes they support in Hong Kong, Xinjiang, Tibet, and so on. But they do not have the right to call me or any other Canadian a traitor or a spy or a foreign agent simply because we don't align with their views 100%. That is the problem. And they don't seem to understand that. They seem to think that anyone who does not agree with them 100% must, by definition, be an agent or proxy of the Chinese state. This is
Well,
McCarthyism.
Well said, Senator Wu. Okay, now I want to ask, what ambitions does CUAME have for the rest of 2025 and for the next few years afterwards?
Well, we need to keep producing these case studies to share with Canadians so that a broader segment of society understands the problem that we're talking about. By producing case studies, I think we will invite many more Canadians to share their stories with us. I invite anyone who is listening to this broadcast and who has a story of modern exclusion to reach out to us. Many people who have faced this kind of national security driven stigmatization, they are afraid to speak out. Of course, they would be afraid to speak out. They are being targeted by our intelligence and security agencies. But I want to give them courage, and I want to tell them, and I want to tell all your listeners, that what we're doing is not protecting China or any foreign country. We are protecting Canadians. We are standing up for the rights and freedoms of Canadians. And if you feel your rights and freedoms have been violated in the way that I've described, we want to hear from you. Now, we need to raise some money, of course, to do this work. We eventually, when we have a good body of research and case studies, we want to go on the road perhaps to do community outreach. And ultimately, and here it connects a little bit with my role as a legislator, we want to affect policy. We want our politicians, our bureaucrats, our intelligence and law enforcement agencies to properly understand national security risk, properly understand foreign interference, fight foreign interference where it really is happening, and not punish innocent Canadians.
Thank you, Senator Wu. Would there be anything additional you'd want to mention to the Canada Files audience?
Well, just to say that while I've talked a lot about the Chinese community and how the issue of China is foremost in modern exclusion, that is a function of geopolitical conflict, as we all know, between between the US and China, and Canada seems to want to play into that conflict. But modern exclusion is not just about Chinese people. It's about Palestinians, for example, Muslims. It could be about any community that in time could be targeted, stigmatized because of geopolitical shifts in the world. Even in the case of China, we are not talking simply about Chinese people, but about any Canadian, perhaps yourself and others who have ties with China, innocent, benign ties with China, or hold views that may seem to be aligned with China. You don't deserve that kind of exclusion either. And I want to just stress that this organization ultimately is about protecting all Canadians' rights and freedoms from all kinds of exclusion, but in particular, modern exclusion.
So, Senator Wu, thank you very much for speaking with the Canada Files.
You're very welcome.
To the Canada Files audience, if you appreciate this journalism, please do consider setting up a monthly donation or an annual one. And once again, to the audience, and most importantly, to yourself, Senator Wu, thank you for taking the time.
Bye bye now.